What's up, everybody? Welcome back. So, Conquest of Azeroth is finally here. And I'm going to be honest, this is probably the hardest character creation screen I've seen in an MMO in years. Normally in WoW, you already know what you're playing. Maybe you've been a warrior main for 10 years. Maybe you're addicted to mage. Or maybe you always end up healing because your guild somehow convinces you every expansion. But Koa completely throws that out the window. Instead of the classes we've played 1,000 times before, we suddenly have 21 completely unique classes, each with their own fantasy, mechanics, strengths, and playstyle. And if you're anything like me, you've probably spent longer staring at the class selection screen than actually playing the game. So the big question is, what should you actually pick? Well, that's exactly what we're going to answer today. Now, before we get started, this is not a tier list. I'm not going to tell you, play this because it does 3% more DPS, because honestly, balance changes all the time. One patch can completely shake everything up. Instead, I'm looking at something that's way more important, the class fantasy. Because if you're going to spend hundreds of hours leveling, gearing, running dungeons, raiding, or PvPing, you need to enjoy what your character actually does. The coolest class in the game for someone else might be the most boring class for you. So for every class, I'm going to answer a few questions. What's the fantasy? How does it actually play? Who is this class made for? And who probably shouldn't pick it? By the end of this video, I want you to know exactly which class fits your playstyle. Alright, let's start with one of the most requested classes. #Necromancer. Let's be honest, if someone tells you they don't think summoning an undead army is cool, they're lying. Necromancer absolutely nails that fantasy. This isn't just mage with skeletons. This class is built around controlling death itself. You're raising undead servants, spreading disease, freezing enemies solid, draining life from your opponents, and slowly turning the battlefield into your own haunted kingdom. I also love that the lore doesn't automatically make them evil. Sure, a lot of necromancers end up walking down some pretty questionable paths, but they're really just scholars who became obsessed with understanding death. Unfortunately, everyone else thinks you're a psychopath, which, to be fair, if someone walked into town dragging 10 skeletons behind them, I'd probably have some questions too. Gameplay-wise, this is for players who enjoy controlling fights instead of simply blowing things up. You're constantly managing summons, deciding where your damage comes from, and slowly overwhelming enemies rather than instantly deleting them. If you enjoy classes where your army is fighting alongside you instead of you doing everything yourself, Necromancer is incredibly satisfying. It's also one of those classes that just feels powerful. There's something intimidating about seeing a player walk into combat with an entire squad following them. Now, who should play Necromancer? If you've ever enjoyed Demonology Warlock, if you like pet classes, if you enjoy damage over time, or you simply love dark fantasy, you're probably going to fall in love with this class. Who should avoid it? If you hate managing summons or prefer fast burst damage instead of slowly taking over a fight, this probably isn't your style. Alright, now we go from death to setting absolutely everything on fire. Pyromancer is probably one of the easiest classes to understand. Do you like explosions? Good, because that's basically your entire identity. Everything this class does revolves around fire. Not little sparks. I'm talking phoenixes, meteor strikes, walls of flame, huge burning explosions. And honestly, the developers clearly asked themselves one question while designing this class. What if we added more fire? And then they never stopped adding it. My favorite part though, you can literally become a dragon. I don't know about you guys, but if a class lets me transform into a dragon, I'm already interested. Gameplay-wise, Pyromancer looks like the class that rewards aggressive players. You're not trying to slowly wear people down. You're trying to erase them before they even realize what happened. Every spell feels flashy. Every ability is loud. Everything explodes. If your graphic settings aren't struggling by the end of a fight, you're probably doing something wrong. This is definitely a class for players who love seeing massive crits and giant spell effects filling the screen. It's also a really approachable class. Even newer players immediately understand what they're supposed to do. Burn everything. Simple, effective, beautiful. Who should play Pyromancer? Anyone who loves Fire Mage. Anyone who enjoys huge spell animations. Or anyone whose solution to every encounter is simply, Have you tried more fire? Who should avoid it? Players looking for subtlety. This class has absolutely none. Okay, this class might honestly have one of the coolest themes in the entire game. Cultist. Immediately, you know something isn't right. You're not the hero. You're not the noble paladin. You're serving the old gods. You're embracing whispers, madness, tentacles, corruption. Basically every nightmare Azeroth has ever produced. And honestly, I love that they fully committed to the fantasy. You wear heavy armor. You carry weapons and shields. But your real strength comes from these terrifying void powers. You're summoning eldritch horrors, driving enemies insane, supporting allies with forbidden magic. And in some cases, you literally transform into monstrous creatures. Imagine explaining that to your raid leader. Hey, don't worry guys, I only become an ancient horror during cooldowns. Mechanically, Cultist seems incredibly versatile. You can support your team. You can survive. You can manipulate enemies. And you always feel like you're using powers nobody was ever supposed to have. If you're a Lovecraft fan, this class was probably designed specifically for you. Who should play it? Players who enjoy void aesthetics. Support players. Anyone who loves old god lore. Or people who think tentacles somehow improve every game. Who should avoid it? If you're looking for a traditional fantasy hero, this definitely isn't it. You're basically the suspicious guy everyone avoids in Goldshire. Now let's completely flip the mood. Instead of darkness, we're talking moonlight. Starcaller feels like one of the most elegant classes in the entire roster. Imagine combining a knight with celestial magic. That's basically what you get. You're wearing heavy armor, standing on the front lines. But instead of relying purely on steel, you're channeling the power of Elune herself. I really like this fantasy because it doesn't feel like another generic paladin. It's much more mystical. You're weaving lunar magic into every attack, while protecting your allies with incredible durability. The class also leans heavily into mana management, which is an interesting twist for a heavily armored fighter. You're balancing martial combat with powerful astral abilities, giving you a playstyle that feels unique compared to anything in retail WoW. If you've always wanted to play someone who looks like they walked straight out of a Night Elf legend, this is probably your class. Who should play Starcaller? Players who enjoy hybrids. People who like supportive frontliners. Night Elf fans. Anyone who thinks moon magic is cooler than holy magic. Who should avoid it? If you want constant high-speed gameplay, Starcaller feels more deliberate and methodical. Now we move from moonlight to sunlight. Sun Cleric is probably the closest thing this game has to saying, what if a priest got tired of standing in the back? Instead of simply healing people, you're generating sunlight itself. You use that sunlight to empower your allies, burn enemies, and eventually become a literal sun knight if you choose that path. That's awesome, because it means the class isn't locked into one fantasy. You can embrace the traditional support role, or become a heavily armored crusader leading the charge. I actually think this will be one of the more popular choices for players who enjoy helping their group, but don't necessarily want to stand 50 yards away staring at health bars all day. Visually, I imagine this class looking incredible. Golden light, solar explosions, radiant armor. It's got that classic Warcraft champion of the light feeling while still doing something unique. Who should play it? Healers, paladin lovers, players who enjoy supporting others, anyone who wants to feel like they're carrying hope into battle. Who should avoid it? People looking for darker themes or assassin-style gameplay. You're literally powered by the sun. There's not much stealth involved. Alright, let's talk about the goblin engineer that drank 6 energy drinks before the fight started. Tinker. This class is just pure chaos. Not magical chaos, mechanical chaos. You're carrying a blunderbuss, throwing bombs, planting mines, building turrets, deploying mechanical spiders, and probably violating every workplace safety regulation imaginable. What I love most is that your power doesn't come from magic. It comes from preparation. You're constantly thinking ahead. Where should I place this turret? When should I detonate these mines? Can I control the battlefield before the enemy even reaches me? That's a really refreshing playstyle, compared to simply pressing damage abilities on cooldown. The Tinker rewards players who like strategy. If you're the type of person who enjoys engineering in games, setting traps, or creating clever setups, you're going to have a blast with this class. And let's be honest, watching enemies accidentally walk into a field of explosives never gets old. Who should play Tinker? Players who enjoy gadgets, engineers, trap lovers, people who like controlling the battlefield. Who should avoid it? Players who just want to charge straight into melee and hit things immediately. Tinker rewards patience, and patience isn't everyone's strong suit. #Runemaster. Now, this one might actually be the highest skill ceiling class we've talked about so far. Runemaster isn't just casting spells, you're crafting your magic. Everything revolves around runes, enhancing weapons, teleporting, managing mana, summoning magical companions, converting incoming damage into mana. There's a lot going on. This definitely feels like the class that's easy to learn, but incredibly difficult to truly master. And honestly, I love classes like that, because every hour you spend playing them feels rewarding. You're constantly discovering little tricks and interactions that make you better. It's also one of the most mysterious classes in the game. The aesthetic is incredible. Arcane symbols floating around, rune daggers glowing, teleportation, magic circles. Everything about it screams ancient magical knowledge. Who should play Runemaster? Players who enjoy complicated rotations, theory crafters, people who love arcane magic, anyone who wants a class with a very high skill ceiling. Who should avoid it? Brand new players looking for something simple. Runemaster seems like one of those classes where the more effort you put in, the more it gives back. And that's only 7 classes. We've still got 14 more to go, and honestly, some of the craziest ones are still coming up. We've got shape-shifting spider assassins, time-traveling mages, demon-infused knights, barbarian war chiefs, monster hunters, and one class that literally turns into a dragon. So if you haven't figured out your main yet, don't worry. We're just getting started. Alright, we've already covered the first 7 classes, and hopefully by now you've got a couple of favorites in mind. But honestly, I think this next group is where Conquest of Azeroth really starts showing off. These aren't just another warrior or another mage. Some of these classes have mechanics that simply don't exist in retail WoW, and that's exactly what makes them exciting. So let's keep going. Okay, imagine if a shaman, a druid, and a berserker all decided to become best friends. That's basically the Primalist. This class feels like it's connected to every raw force Azeroth has to offer. Animals, earth, fire, wind, water, nature itself. And somehow it all comes together into one incredibly versatile class. What I really like is that Primalists don't just use nature, they become part of it. Instead of simply throwing lightning around, you're channeling ancient spirits. Need more power? Call on the bear. Need speed? Summon the wolf. Need precision? The eagle has you covered. You're constantly borrowing strength from these primal spirits depending on the situation. But that's only half of the class, because then you've also got the Geomancer side. Now you're smashing the ground open with earthquakes, launching rocks, splitting the battlefield apart. It almost feels like the world itself is fighting alongside you. And if that wasn't enough, you can tap into the elemental planes and bring fire, water, and wind into your attacks too. This class has a ridiculous amount of variety. That's probably its biggest selling point. If you're someone who gets bored easily, Primalist gives you a lot to experiment with. Who should play it? Players who loved Enhancement Shaman, Feral Druids, or anyone who wants a class that feels deeply connected to Azeroth itself. Who should avoid it? People looking for one simple playstyle. Primalist has a lot of moving pieces. Alright, let's talk about one of the coolest looking classes in the entire game, Reaper. First of all, you're carrying a giant cursed weapon. Second, you're literally walking between the physical world and the spirit world. Third, your abilities revolve around collecting souls. How do you not think that's cool? This is probably the definition of an edgy class, but it's edgy in the best possible way. The idea that you're only partially existing in reality makes every fight feel different. You're slipping between worlds, carving enemies apart before they even realize where you came from. One mechanic I absolutely love is how the class heals itself. Instead of relying on traditional healing, you're rewarded for staying aggressive. The more damage you deal, the more souls you harvest, the longer you stay alive. That's such a satisfying gameplay loop. Instead of backing away from danger, you're encouraged to keep attacking. That creates this really fast, relentless playstyle. You don't feel like a heavily armored tank. You feel like death chasing someone through a hallway. And honestly, the visual effects alone are probably going to convince a lot of people. Ghostly energy, shadow magic, soul harvesting, huge scythes. What's not to like? Who should play Reaper? Players who love Death Knights, shadow aesthetics, aggressive melee combat, self-sustain. Anyone who enjoys becoming the monster everyone else fears. Who should avoid it? Players who like standing safely in the back, casting spells. This class wants to be in someone's face. Now this is one of the weirdest classes in the game, and I mean that as a compliment. Venomancer is dedicated to the spider Loa, Shadra. Already a cool start, but then the class goes even further. You don't just fight with poison, you literally transform into different creatures. Spiders, scorpions, even Nerubians. Every transformation changes the way you approach combat. That alone makes this class incredibly interesting. Instead of feeling like one character with different abilities, it almost feels like you're switching between multiple identities during a fight. Poisons are obviously a huge part of the gameplay. You're weakening enemies, slowing them down, draining their life, wrapping them in webs. By the time they finally reach you, they're already halfway dead. I also imagine this being one of the more satisfying PvP classes. There's something incredibly frustrating about fighting someone who's constantly poisoning you while refusing to let you move. If you're into that, congratulations. You're probably going to annoy a lot of people. Who should play Venomancer? Players who enjoy rogues, damage over time classes, shape-shifting, or anyone who thinks spiders are cool instead of terrifying. Who should avoid it? Anyone with arachnophobia. Seriously, maybe skip this one. Now we get to what I think NK might be the most creative class in Conquest of Azeroth. Chronomancer. Instead of controlling elements, you control time. That immediately opens the door to some incredibly unique gameplay. Imagine leaving behind copies of yourself every time you move, then suddenly rewinding back to where you were a few seconds ago. You can literally outplay people using time itself. That's awesome. You aren't just casting spells, you're manipulating reality, speeding allies up, aging enemies, repositioning, creating alternate versions of yourself. And then there's chaos magic mixed into everything. The combination makes the class feel unpredictable in the best way possible. I honestly think Chronomancer is going to attract players who enjoy mastering difficult classes, because timing is everything. Knowing exactly when to rewind, when to leave a duplicate, when to manipulate positioning. Those decisions are going to separate average players from incredible ones. This isn't a button-mashing class, it's a thinking class. And that's why I think it's going to have one of the highest skill ceilings in the game. Who should play Chronomancer? Mage players, people who love clever mechanics, high-skill gameplay, anyone who enjoys outsmarting opponents instead of overpowering them. Who should avoid it? Players looking for something simple. You'll probably need practice before this class really clicks. Bloodmage. Blood magic has always been one of Warcraft's coolest themes, and Bloodmage absolutely embraces it. Instead of drawing power from mana alone, you're weaving together blood, shadow, and sacrifice. Immediately, that gives the class a darker feeling. Every spell feels dangerous, like you're using power that maybe shouldn't exist. I also like how flexible the class seems. You're not locked into only dealing damage. You can also heal, which creates an interesting identity. Instead of choosing between light and darkness, you're healing people through forbidden magic. That's just a really cool fantasy. And then there's the cursed transformations. Whenever a class lets me transform into something terrifying, I'm interested. Bloodmage feels like one of those classes that walks a very fine line. You're helping your allies, but everyone is also slightly uncomfortable standing next to you. Who should play Bloodmage? Players who enjoy hybrid roles, Shadow Priest fans, dark fantasy lovers, people who like classes with a mysterious identity. Who should avoid it? Players looking for bright, heroic themes. This class definitely leans into the darker side of Warcraft. #Guardian. Every MMO needs that player. You know exactly who I'm talking about. The one that says, I'll tank. Guardian is built for that player. This class doesn't rely on flashy magic or complicated mechanics. It relies on experience, discipline, armor, weapons, and standing exactly where nobody else wants to stand, right in front of the boss. I actually respect that. Sometimes simple class fantasy is the strongest. You're the wall between your party and certain death. You're absorbing ridiculous amounts of damage, protecting your teammates, switching weapons depending on the encounter, adapting to whatever the fight throws at you. Guardian feels dependable. When you see one in your group, you know things are probably going to be okay, unless they pull the entire dungeon, Which, let's be honest, someone always does. Who should play Guardian? Tank players, warrior mains, people who enjoy leading groups, anyone who likes feeling unbreakable. Who should avoid it? Players who only care about topping the damage meters. Guardian is about protecting everyone else. Stormbringer. Okay, this class is pure adrenaline. Stormbringer doesn't simply cast lightning, it becomes the storm. You're throwing bolts of electricity everywhere, calling hurricanes, manipulating rain, transforming into living lightning. Already amazing. But then the class introduces one of the coolest mechanics we've seen so far. Static. Every spell builds static. More static means more damage. Sounds great, right? Except build too much, and eventually you discharge. That's such an interesting risk versus reward system. You're constantly asking yourself, do I keep pushing for more damage, or do I play it safe? That creates really exciting gameplay. Good Stormbringer players won't just know their abilities, they'll know exactly how greedy they can afford to be. And let's be honest, we've all been greedy in games before. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you're lying face down on the floor wondering what happened. Visually, I think this class is going to be insane. Lightning everywhere, wind effects, thunder, teleporting around as pure electricity. It's basically Thor if he decided Azeroth looked fun. Who should play Stormbringer? Elemental players. Anyone who loves lightning magic. People who enjoy high-risk, high-reward gameplay. Who should avoid it? Players who hate managing resources. Static is something you'll constantly be thinking about. So that's 14 classes down. And somehow, the next 7 might be even crazier. We've still got demon hunters that aren't demon hunters, holy martial artists, barbarians that can resurrect allies, monster slayers armed with crossbows and grenades, hellfire knights, and one of the most versatile classes in the game. If you still haven't decided what to main, don't worry. The best might still be waiting for you. Alright, we've finally made it to the last 7 classes. If you've been watching from the beginning, you've probably already changed your mind at least 3 times about what you're going to main. Don't worry, I did the exact same thing. Every time I thought I'd found my favorite, another class came along and completely changed my mind. So let's finish this. #Felsworn. Let's start with the Felsworn. Now if you're someone who loved Illidan, the Burning Legion, or anything involving Fel magic, this class is probably going to grab your attention immediately. The cool thing about the Felsworn is that they're not just demons or Legion soldiers. They're former agents of the Legion who have broken away and are now using everything they learned against their former masters. That's a really cool story. Instead of being corrupted by Fel magic, you've mastered it. Gameplay-wise, this class looks incredibly aggressive. You're constantly chaining together combos, weaving melee attacks into chaos magic, and keeping pressure on your enemies. It's one of those classes that rewards momentum. Once you get going, you don't really want to stop. You want to stay in the fight, keep your combo rolling, and overwhelm whoever is standing in front of you. I also like that it isn't locked into one role. It can lead the charge or play alongside the rest of the group, making it a solid option if you like flexibility. Who should play Felsworn? If you liked Demon Hunter, Enhancement Shaman, or fast-paced melee combat, you're probably going to love this. Who should avoid it? If you prefer slower, methodical gameplay where every decision is carefully planned, Felsworn is all about speed and aggression. Alright, sometimes you don't need complicated mechanics. Sometimes you just want to hit something with an axe the size of a horse. That's Barbarian. This class is pure power. You're charging into battle with overwhelming strength, smashing through enemies with massive weapons, and relying on raw brutality instead of flashy magic. But here's what surprised me. Barbarian isn't just about dealing damage. You can actually support your allies through ancestral spirits, healing them during battle, and even calling upon the Valkyr to help your team. And yes, the fact that Barbarians can even resurrect allies is honestly one of the coolest twists on the class. It's not something I expected when I first read about it. You think you're getting the classic angry warrior. Then suddenly they're bringing people back from the dead. That's awesome. Who should play Barbarian? People who love big weapons, melee players, warrior fans, anyone who enjoys straightforward but satisfying gameplay. Who should avoid it? Players who want lots of ranged abilities or complicated spell rotations. This class, honestly, might be one of the most underrated in the entire game. Witch Doctor has such a unique identity. Instead of throwing giant fireballs or charging into melee, you're slowly taking complete control of the battlefield. Totems, hexes, curses, potions, poisons, Loa spirits. Everything about this class is built around making life miserable for your enemies, and I absolutely love that. You're constantly weakening opponents while making your own team stronger. It's almost like playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. One thing that really stood out to me is that Witch Doctor is described as an incredible solo class. That's a huge advantage. Not everyone spends all day running dungeons with a guild. A lot of players quest alone, farm alone, explore alone. Having a class that can sustain itself almost indefinitely makes solo content so much more enjoyable. Who should play Witch Doctor? Solo players, support players, people who enjoy strategy, anyone who likes slowly outlasting opponents instead of instantly deleting them. Who should avoid it? Players who want huge burst damage every 10 seconds. Hashtag Witch Hunter. Now we have one of the coolest fantasy classes in the game. Imagine Van Helsing. Now imagine Van Helsing inside Warcraft. That's basically the Witch Hunter. You're carrying a crossbow, a silver blade, grenades, potions, everything you need to hunt monsters. I absolutely love the fantasy here. You're not a soldier, you're not a knight. You're a professional hunter, the kind of person people call when something terrifying shows up in the woods. Gameplay looks extremely mobile. You're constantly moving, keeping your distance, looking for the perfect opportunity to strike before disappearing again. This is definitely going to appeal to players who enjoy outplaying opponents through positioning instead of standing toe-to-toe. Who should play Witch Hunter? Hunter players, rogue players, PvP enthusiasts, anyone who enjoys mobility. Who should avoid it? Players who like standing still casting huge spells. Hashtag Knight of Xoroth. Okay, this class sounds absolutely insane. The Knights of Xoroth aren't just knights. They're literally demon spirits infused into dead mortal bodies. That's metal. Instead of serving warlocks, they're now free to choose their own destiny. Or burn the world down. Either option works. Gameplay revolves around plague and hellfire. You aren't using holy magic. You aren't using shadow. You're bringing apocalyptic destruction wherever you go. Visually, I think this class is going to look incredible. Green fire, dark armor, infernal effects. Everything about it screams end-of-the-world energy. Who should play Knight of Xoroth? Death Knight fans, Fel lovers, players who enjoy dark anti-hero characters. Who should avoid it? Anyone looking for a traditional noble knight. This isn't Arthas before the fall. This is after the fall. Way after. Hashtag Templar. Templar is such an interesting contrast to Knight of Xoroth. Instead of embracing darkness, everything about this class is discipline, faith, training, balance. Originally peaceful monks living inside monasteries, war forced them to become warriors. That's a really cool backstory. The thing I like most is how they combine martial arts with holy magic. You're not simply casting light spells. You're literally infusing holy energy into your fists and weapons. That sounds incredibly satisfying. I also think this class is going to attract players who enjoy mastering rotations. Martial classes always reward practice. Every fight feels cleaner as you improve. Who should play Templar? Paladin fans, monk fans, players who enjoy disciplined martial combat. Anyone who likes the fantasy of becoming a holy warrior through training instead of destiny. Who should avoid it? Players looking for dark themes or ranged gameplay. Hashtag Ranger. And finally, the Ranger. Honestly, I think Ranger might end up being one of the safest recommendations for brand new players. Why? Because it's good at almost everything. Need ranged combat? You have it. Need melee combat? You have it. Need support? You have Warhorns. Need utility? You have stealth. Need survivability? You can literally craft temporary armor buffs from the hides of enemies you defeat. That's awesome. Instead of specializing in one thing, Ranger specializes in adapting. You're constantly switching between bow and sword depending on the situation. That flexibility makes the class incredibly appealing, especially if you're the kind of player who doesn't like feeling locked into one playstyle. If you enjoy always having an answer for every situation, Ranger deserves your attention. Who should play Ranger? New players, hunter mains, people who love versatility, players who enjoy helping their party while still dealing great damage. Who should avoid it? Anyone who wants to completely dedicate themselves to one very specific role. So, what should you actually play? Now comes the question everyone clicked on this video for. What class should I pick? Well, here's what I'd recommend. If you love dark fantasy, Necromancer, Cultist, Reaper, Bloodmage, Knight of Xoroth. These classes really lean into the darker side of Warcraft. If you like undead, demons, shadow magic, forbidden knowledge, or generally looking like the villain in someone else's story, you honestly can't go wrong with any of these. If you love flashy spellcasters, Pyromancer, Stormbringer, Chronomancer, Runemaster. Each one has a completely different flavor of magic. Fire, lightning, time, or arcane mastery. They're all visually impressive, but they play very differently. If you love melee combat, Guardian, Barbarian, Felsworn, Templar, Starcaller. These are the classes that want to be in the thick of the action. Some are tanks, some are bruisers, some blend magic with weapons, but they all reward players who enjoy fighting up close. If you enjoy supporting your team, Sun Cleric, Witch Doctor, Starcaller, Guardian, Barbarian. Support isn't just about healing in Conquest of Azeroth. Buffs, crowd control, utility, and survivability all matter, and these classes bring plenty of it. If you mostly play solo, Witch Doctor is an easy recommendation thanks to its incredible sustain. Necromancer is fantastic because your undead army helps take pressure off you. Ranger is flexible enough to handle almost anything the game throws at you. Venomancer has plenty of tools to control fights and survive. If you love high skill ceilings, Chronomancer, Runemaster, Stormbringer. These are the classes where mastering the mechanics will make a huge difference. If you enjoy practicing and improving over time, these will keep you engaged for a long time. If you're completely new to Conquest of Azeroth, I'd probably recommend starting with Pyromancer, Guardian, Ranger, Barbarian, or Sun Cleric. They're easier to understand conceptually, have strong class fantasies, and should help you learn the game before moving on to some of the more technical classes. Final thoughts. I genuinely think Conquest of Azeroth has one of the most creative class lineups I've ever seen in a Warcraft project. Instead of giving us slightly different versions of existing WoW classes, they've built completely new fantasies that actually make choosing your first character difficult in the best possible way. And honestly, that's something I haven't felt in an MMO for a long time. Now I want to hear from you guys. What class are you planning to main? Did this video change your mind? Or are you still stuck trying to choose between 3 different classes? Drop your answers in the comments because I'm really curious to see what everyone's picking. If this guide helped you out, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell because I've got class builds, leveling guides, dungeon content, PvP videos, and a whole lot more Conquest of Azeroth content coming very soon. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in Azeroth.